Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We do have plenty of topics to get into, but the one topic that we want to address a little later in the program will be the death of Kobe Bryant and 8 others tragically lost their lives this morning in Los Angeles area when their helicopter crashed. Just tragic news. Among the dead, his 13-year-old daughter as well. We will talk about Kobe Bryant and his legacy a bit later in this show. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pittsburgh Pirates coming off Pirate Fest as they get ready for another season with plenty of questions. And here to debate those questions with you is your panel. Right, you see up and down, down and up. It's Josh Yohe at the top. It's like the Brady Bunch, Josh. I wasn't sure what we were doing there. And then here we go. Over to the left, it's Josh Yohe from The Athletic. Does a great job with the Penguins. Ron Cook, outstanding columnist with the Post-Gazette and host of the Cook and Joe Show on 93.7 The Fan, and Mr. Tim Benz.
To make me Alice?
Yes, you could be Alice.
Obviously.
Yeah. Was she in the original? No, she's not in there. The kids are. You're not Alice. You're Tim, and you're going to speak first here, Tim, because I want to talk about the situation with Pirate Fest. Not many answers there, although there are a lot of questions regarding Starling Marte. The Pirates clearly are trying to move him. So the question is, #1, would you move him? #2, when should they do it? #3, what would you want in return for him?
I wouldn't, because I'm in the interest of seeing my baseball team win, especially early before you give up hope on a season. They don't have much else, but they tend to have a different agenda. When would I move him? Well, if I want to be consistent with my message, then I wouldn't move him right away before games start. I'd wait into the season because, as Derek Shelton said recently, he wants to be able to get his hands on guys, and they want to be able to see them with their own eyes. And, you know, I wonder if that was just meant for pitchers they know they're going to keep and have to keep, but not for guys who might cost a little bit more and they can dump on someone else. I think the trickle-down effect isn't so much losing Starling Marte, because I just assume they're not going to get much for him. But I think the bigger deal is Bryan Reynolds going to center field. Okay, he could probably pull it off, but especially at PNC Park, they better find somebody capable of playing left field if Reynolds is going to go to center, or else that could look ugly.
Well, I'd trade him yesterday if you could get something for him, and I don't mean just give them away. They're not going to win as they currently are. They need pitching desperately. They could still use a catcher desperately. He's the one marketable guy they had. They used to have a relief pitcher that would have been very valuable to other teams, but he's gone, thank goodness. I'd trade him. I have no reason to keep him. Get something now while he's at the highest possible value. I don't give him away, but I got to get a pitcher.
Yeah, I don't know if the Pirates should be in a rush to trade him, but it seems to me when you kind of read between the lines, when you listen to the new Brain Trust speak, I think there's a pretty big rebuilding move on the way here. And they don't
Without saying that word. They don't like to say that word.
Yeah, they don't want to say it, and I don't blame them, but it's pretty evident that's what's happening. That's fine. Marte, to me, is an incredibly talented player. He's not a great player. They're not going to go anywhere with him as their best player. If you can get something legitimate in return, yeah, I would trade him. But like Ron said, this team needs pitching so badly. It was painful to watch last season. They've done nothing to address it in the offseason. They've not spent any money. That's fine if that's the path they want to take. See what you can get for him, but I don't know that his value is all that great at this point.
But guys, like, I think we'd all agree, though. I mean, they're still going to have one of the lowest payrolls in all of Major League Baseball, even if Marte is retained. And if you just turn right around within the first few months of this new management team and ditch Marte, doesn't that undercut anything you're trying to sell to your fan base to make them believe, as difficult as that might be?
You're trying to sell wins. How many wins are they going to have with this pitching staff? I don't care what the payroll is. I don't care what the payroll is with Marte. It's still not going to be any good. But again, you got to get something back. I'm not saying just give him away to shed his contract here. But all the fans care about is they don't care what the payroll is as long as the team wins. And they're not going to win the way they are right now, with or without Marte.
I don't see a path of what's coming back as any more clear to the average fan that they're going to win more with Marte gone.
If you get a decent pitcher, maybe.
How about if you don't? How about if it's something that doesn't seem well? Because if you put Marte in center, Reynolds in left, and you have to assume that Polanco is going to be there. I mean, if you don't.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe, but it's been a long time. And if he is, that lineup with those 4, if you include Josh Bell, is not all that bad. If you remember, their offense was actually pretty good last year. Pitching is a problem, and they need more of it. But I think they're looking for internal guys developing better than they did last year.
They're always looking for internal guys.
I know that, but My
Always.
point is that lineup is good enough. If you don't get enough for him, I have no problem waiting or keeping him for right now. Josh, would you do that? Would you, if Starling Marte, if you can't get what you want, what's the point of just getting rid of him to get rid of him?
That's fair, but I will say this regarding the message that it sends to the fans. PNC Park was empty last summer with Starling Marte playing. He's not a draw. He's not marketable. Yes, he's a good player. And one thing that also did cross my mind to make all of us feel a little bit older, Marte, if he does get traded, is the final guy who was in the starting lineup in the wild card game against the Reds in 2013. It's amazing how quickly that team has just completely fallen apart.
That does hurt. That does drive a nail, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. But to your point about him not selling seats, Josh, I won't debate that. I agree. He doesn't sell seats. They're going to put all those new seats in PNC Park this year, and no one's going to sit in them, so maybe they'll last longer. But it's the message of how many more people will then stay away actively, because it's one more step to just proving you're not trying to operate as a Major League Baseball team.
Ron, let me ask you this about Josh Bell. He's the guy who talks about simplifying his swing. He was a one-trick month, basically. He had a really good month, and he did well overall, over 115 runs batted in. But he needs to be more consistent. When you see Josh Bell, what do you see with his swing and what your expectations are for him following last season, which was statistically very good?
I see him being on another team in another year. So what has he got, 3 years of arbitration? They're not going to pay him if he becomes really, really good. I don't, and there's nobody untouchable on this team for me at this point. If they totally rebuild and there's another year or two of losing, my God, we've had a lot of experience at dealing with that. He's not an untouchable for me by any stretch.
Bob, he insists anyway, that it's not his swing being too complicated that's the issue. He was pretty clear about that to us when we spoke with him at Pirate Fest over the weekend. He's insisting that his biggest problem is timing back onto the fastball and then timing off of the fastball onto breaking pitches. So he's making it more about his eyes and more about the anticipation of what pitch is coming, more so than the mechanics of his swing. Again, that's what he's saying. That's his insistence. Maybe Shelton, the new manager, who's got a hitting coach background to a degree, can tinker with that if it's not true.
Yeah, he is extraordinarily streaky, but, power hitters often are. When Ryan Howard was great in Philadelphia a decade ago, he would be awful for a month or two, and then he would hit 15 home runs in a month. Those guys are often like that. He had a really good season. He still put up over 100 RBIs. He is a legitimate power hitter. Is he a superstar? I don't know about that, but I think in terms of the problems that the Pirates have, Josh Bell's pretty low on the list, but I am curious to see if they try to lock him up or if, like Ron suggested, and I tend to agree, maybe he is trade bait in the next year or so. It's sad to think that you could have a breakout star potentially and all of a sudden trade him in a year or so, but that's just the cycle the Pirates have been in for however long it's been now, and with the exception of those 3 years, it hasn't changed in a generation.
Josh, you know who his agent is, right? I don't see the Pirates locking him up anytime soon.
I tend to
But
agree.
again, that comes down to a
Scott
choice.
Boras.
They always choose not to go in that direction. They can. There's nothing out there saying they can't. They can choose to sign guys longer term and spend more money if they want to, and given where their payroll is, they certainly could do that. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Penguins, who are in their all-star/bye break, and when they come back, it's the Philadelphia Flyers. It's also a lot of games head-to-head in the Metropolitan Division. We'll talk about their goaltending, and if they make a trade, what do they want in return? But I want you to remember something, too. It's exciting when the team moves into a new building. That's certainly true with the team at number 1 Cochrane Hyundai South Hills and their spacious new facility, even though they only moved less than a mile up the street. Right now, for a limited time, get special grand opening offers in both sales and service. It's the new number 1 Cochrane Hyundai South Hills, now conveniently located at 3220 West Liberty Avenue. Penguins Hockey Talk when we come back. The number 1 Cochrane Sports Showdown is brought to you by number 1 Cochrane. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.